Welcome to another edition of Why Are You Awake? Paul Farahvar, your host. This week we have comedian Anthony Bonazzo. Make sure you follow him on all his social medias right here. Also, if you're listening to this podcast, go over to the YouTube page at youtube.com/Paul F Comedy and watch us live. Follow me on social media as well. Check out my website, Paul F Comedy, for upcoming dates, including our Parkinson's fundraiser on December 15th at Rosemont Zanies. Also, check out our sponsors. Hey gang, as some of you know, I used to be a practicing lawyer in Chicago. I no longer practice, but from time to time, I need a lawyer. And when I need a lawyer, I call my friend Scott Shapiro. Scott Shapiro has been practicing law for over 25 years in Chicago. He does it all, from workers' compensation to personal injury, employment issues, and even entertainment law and contract needs. If you need a lawyer, call my friend Scott. 312-648-8800. That's 312-648-8800. Or you can email him at scott@scottshapirolegal.com. Tell him I sent you. You're welcome. Why Are You Awake time? Paul Farahvar here. Tonight we have an amazing guest, one of my top 17 favorite comedians in the Chicagoland area, originally from another state, Anthony Bonazzo.
Thank you, Mr. Farahvar, for having me.
Anthony.
I love how I've known you for like 20 years and you still correct me before you go on stage.
You know what? It's a funny thing that it's like a nervous twitch that I do. And it's when someone's hosting a show, I'll always do it. And then 90% of the time they're like, yeah, I know. And then sometimes
I get it right?
Yeah, of course. Okay. But it is creates that doubt for people, which is great. I love that.
Well, Bonazzo's not that much better.
Bonazzo's easy, but there's just the spelling always gets me fucked
people
up.
always butcher it.
Yeah.
Literally, we'll find a way. I got called De Benedetto one time. I'm like, where did you get a D?
De Benedetto.
And then one time at Jokes and Notes, when the host was bringing me up and he forgot my name, and I had been working with him for however long, Jokes and Notes. And he's like, this is my boy. We've been doing comedy for the last 20 years together. Give it up for Anthony. Bo. Like, and he just sang like he was like my last name. And I walked up to him afterwards in the lobby. I go, dude, what were you doing? And he's like, oh man, I got so nervous. I forgot how to say your name. I'm like, so you just thought singing it was like a better choice? Sometimes
if I'm hosting something and I forget how to say someone's name, you just yell really
loud. Oh yeah. The trick is I just go, start clapping right now until you can't hear what you actually say. Right. And then you can just fake it instead of just singing it, just get them really loud, and then you could just yell anything. You could, no one's gonna know what you said after people are, and you give it up for Paul. Like you could just butcher the middle, and no one would know.
No one's gonna pay attention. Yeah.
It's a good
90% of the time they don't even know who the fuck we are, so it doesn't matter. You have been doing comedy longer than me, and I'm trying to remember where we first met. Was it at
Merkel's?
Merkel's, yeah, the famous 2.5 Persians open microphone. I ran that like a machine. You were always like a person that had early morning, and you're like, "Can I go up early?
Yeah,
I have to leave early."
It was a stressful night at Merkel's.
Why was it?
There was like attendance. You were like, "Where are you?" And I'm like, "I'm in the bathroom." And you're like, "All right, making sure you didn't leave the room."
Couldn't leave the room.
Colonel Farahvar's out patrolling the area.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure it was crowded for every comedian, which. In hindsight now, I mean, back then open mics were different. There weren't as many.
I don't know, man. I black a lot of that out.
There wasn't, because I remember when we started it was a big deal because people were mad. They're like, "Oh, well, that's the same night as such and such."
Yeah,
and like,
yeah. I guess you're right. It's hard to remember because like now it's different. Where I'm probably not going to go if I have to wait like 2 hours to work on like one joke. Tend to like text people who are hosting like, "Hey, is there any chance I go up early?" I've kind of been doing that my whole comedy career.
Yeah, you were doing that 12 years ago.
But like, I've never in my entire 15 years of doing comedy have ever waited to go up 75th at an open mic and been glad. It's not going to go well. Like the room's going to die. So it's like, it just made sense. Anything past like 10:30 at an open mic.
We did two things. That mic, we had guest celebrity hosts who we promised them that they would be out by whatever time. Because they were like, they had real jobs. Some of them did. And so we're like, the show has to end at this time. So we would cap the mic. Because then we had a contest at the end where the three best comedians got to win a prize.
I don't think I ever won. I think I hit the finals like 3 times, and then you're like, you left. You would have won. The other time you texted me, you're like, should have stuck around. And then what's his name showed up from Curb.
Oh, Jeff Garland.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, I'm getting my sleep.
Yeah.
Which is just a joke because now I don't sleep. No, I guess back then I did sleep. I think the more you do comedy, the less you sleep.
The less sleep you need, yeah.
Well, I don't know if it's need. It's just I think it's harder to get quality sleep regular, right? For me, because my brain is always going. Like, I'm always making something. I'm always posting something. I was writing something intertwined with like my day job. I'm like, on break, I'll do like a reel, go back to work, and then like train, work, think of something, write it down, or schedule something. And I don't think nobody was really doing that in the beginning. Nobody was that aggressive with that didn't start until like during like COVID and TikTok and stuff.
Yeah.
So now it's like this pressure. It could be something super dumb that you do. Like I did this moose voiceover that went like viral. It was like some moose walking through someone's pool, bored out of my mind one night, and I couldn't fall asleep. And I was like, oh. And I had like 1,000 followers overnight. I'm like, what is going on?
There's no rhyme or reason.
Yeah.
It's really frustrating.
So you try to do specials, and then you try to do like your best clips, and it doesn't matter. I've
talked to a couple of my friends who went viral. I'm like, what's the key? And they'll give me some tips. Even then, I'm like, it seems like that's not going to work.
Yeah, you got to like have something like, audience member chokes stand up on stage and puts them into BJJ arm. Yeah. You got like, that comic that got the beer thrown at her?
Yeah.
Her life changed after that. Like she ended up going on Kimmel. Maybe I'll just throw a beer at you.
I thought about someone shooting me. There's a couple of comics who know how to shoot. You're like,
do it at Merkel's.
Shoot. Yeah. Go back.
Like one night only.
Get a flesh wound.
Just keep walking around the back. And I'll
what is your problem? I'm like, I'll tell you my problem.
And I'll shoot you, and I'll be like, it's pronounced Farahvar. I just start correcting everybody who's saying your name wrong.
That'd be great.
Both go viral from a shooting.
You're talking about trying to create content and your mind always being up. I'm the same way. How do you shut it off after a show? Like today, we both did shows. What would you have done if you didn't have to do this podcast?
I probably would have finished Penguin, which I probably still will do when I go home. It's really bad because I complain that I don't get enough sleep, and then I will go home and I will watch the most disturbing horror movies till like 2:00 in the morning.
We talk about that on this podcast a lot. You people that are obsessed with, do you like horror movies?
I don't like gory, and I don't like gratuitous violence. Like when I was younger, I would watch like Friday the 13th and all that stuff, and I don't really like that stuff now. I do like psychological horrors or like thrillers.
I just saw Jaws for the first time 3 months ago, and I'm like, this is stupid. I don't like to be afraid.
But I feel like it's so hard to get scared that when I actually do get scared, I'm kind of glad that I got scared because I wasn't expecting it. Yes. That's like my old COVID joke. Like I kind of want to get COVID just to feel something. Like, let me watch a good horror movie so that I can feel something.
It's kind of hard to fall asleep after a show.
Yeah, and I'm sure horror is not helping.
You said something where you're like, your mind's always going. What do you do to turn that off? Or how do you turn it off to sleep?
So I swear I get no commission, but I found these gummies. It's CBD, melatonin, and it has a little bit of, and they're completely over the counter. But I take one, and within like 10 minutes, I can't even keep my eyes open. But this is what an idiot I am. I'll fight it sometimes, and be like, no, I gotta stay up. I gotta finish. Gotta finish Penguin. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like you're tired. Go to bed. I read a great quote. It was like on Instagram. It said something like, night owls are people that feel unfulfilled and confined in their day-to-day activities that they try to make up for that lack of time in their at night. Mm-hmm. Like you're trying to like make up for the stuff that you felt like you didn't have the time to do for your own joy. Sure. And I get that. Like sometimes I'll just like I come alive and people are like, oh, it's because you're a Cancer. It's the moonlight. And I'm like, I mean, whatever. That could be I'm a crab. Maybe I was a crustacean in another life. I get super like creative at night.
Yeah.
Like I have this one client. He's
so for people, you keep saying client just so people know he's a trainer.
So yeah, personal trainer, do yoga. Like I have a yoga certification. I also do.
I didn't know you do yoga too.
Well, it's kind of like I shifted it, right? So I got like right before COVID, I got certified. I kind of like fell in love with corrective exercise and like an injury rehab.
Sure.
But I have this one client, and he always wants to meet early. And he keeps like, it's like this dance every week. It'll be the worst timing. I'll like drive home from like a show that was like in Indiana. I'm exhausted. I'm like 4 hours of sleep, and I'll get like a text at like 11, like, I got to move our session to like an hour earlier. And I'm like, oh God.
Do you have to work every morning?
Yeah. And I only really do early mornings, like 2 or 3 days a week.
What's early morning to you?
Him and I meet anywhere between like 7 and 7:45. Yeah. Obviously, I try to always shimmy it to like 8. That's my rule, like in life, that like when I am whatever, like I don't feel like I ever want to start my day earlier than 8. Like I think it should be illegal. I feel like it should be illegal. Even 8 is early.
Let's start with this. What time are you normally going to bed these days?
It's terrible. It's like 2 almost every night.
Okay.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And you're still. What if you didn't have to wake up for whatever training you had?
I would probably try to be up by 9. I feel like 9's like a good starting point.
So your body just automatically wakes up, or how does that work?
No, it's terrible.
So how do you? I don't understand.
I don't even know how I'm alive. The lack of sleep that I have like over the years has probably done so much damage.
You don't need 7 hours.
Oh,
of
I
sleep?
do. This is why I end up taking a nap.
Okay.
Or I'm just like,
which is fine,
a disaster because I'm always on the go. Like, and I think that's the adrenaline. Eventually catches up, and then by like Thursday, I'm like, oh man, what am I doing? And then I'm like, oh, I have a weekend at a club. I'm like, shit, I gotta regroup. And supplements help. Like there's some certain fitness supplements that you can take that
B12s.
Yeah, the B vitamins. I have this like natural fat burn. It's mostly like green tea, green coffee bean.
If you're not taking melatonin, or
those gummies do have a little
the
bit
gummies that you do. You say you're creative. Are you listening to your sets the same night when you go home?
Mm-mm.
You're doing other shit, creative stuff.
I always check the set after like my set list, like what did I miss, and I'm usually super annoyed at myself if I missed something, especially if it was like a newer joke. I wouldn't say it's punishment, but like the next night I'll like go out and like start the set at that point to get out the words. Like especially if I'm like preparing for like a weekend. Like this weekend I'm headlining. I gotta like have these things down because if I forget them at both, I'll be like annoyed at myself.
You have a set list when you go on the weekends. If you're headlining, you have a set list.
I have a skeletal.
Right.
Like outline.
Do you keep it on stage with you? Or
no,
okay,
never.
You just have it.
It's like
you look at it
in my head. It's like opener, like current event, something funny,
right?
That just happened to like connect with the audience, and then it's like here's about like me, physical appearance, growing up, being in my 40s, and then you get into your flow, and depending on how that's going, you'll just keep going. But if it's like they're weird and they want to like talk, I'll just go back to crowd work and start talking and whatnot.
When you are leaving a show, you go back, you just visually see what you didn't do.
When I get off stage, I'll check my notes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. By the time I get home, I'm not like bringing it home. Like I'm not like, oh, I have to listen to the set now, which I probably should, but I end up doing that anyway when I watch the clip and I edit it. And sadly, sometimes like I didn't take a weekend off for like a month. And I came home and I was like, I'm taking this like the weekend off. It was like 2 weeks ago or something. And I was like, oh my God, that kind of felt nice. I don't know how people do that every weekend though, where it's just like, yeah, I'm just gonna lay around. What am I doing?
I had a day off once recently on a Friday, and I was like, this is so weird because I messed up a weekend. For me, it's like I'll definitely take days off during the week, but on weekends I'm like, I gotta be booked.
Yeah.
Well in advance. I was like, oh, this isn't that bad. Like,
yeah.
To have a night off on a weekend because
like,
you get to do cool shit.
Sometimes you like take a break and you're like, I don't want to take a break. I want to stay like on because it's like exercise, right?
Yeah.
You lose a couple of days, you lose your rhythm.
I couldn't do that for a while. I couldn't do if I had 2 days off in a row. Now I'm okay with it.
That'll screw me up.
It screws me up.
2 days in a row. I can't do a show without doing a show before it, like the night before, like a mic or something. Last night I did a mic to get ready for tonight.
Tonight? Your show is tonight.
Right.
You do a mic to prepare for your own show?
Yeah. Like, because I'm working on material that I want to, like, try.
Sure.
Versus, like, doing it cold. And I'm glad I did because that was, like, a hot, real crowd. You know, like, sometimes you've done it and it's like, you know, all right, this is the show. I'm going to try some new stuff. Because it's, like, less people. But this is, like, packed.
It was packed.
So I was like, thank God I didn't go up there and was like, oh, I want to try this new one on you.
Yeah, but you're also smart enough to look around the room and be like, okay, this is packed.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. It's like, I'm glad to have at least gotten the words out.
When did you start becoming like a night person or a creative person?
Night person's been my whole life since I was like 17.
You grew up in New Jersey?
Yep.
Did you used to go to the Big Apple on weekends? And did you call it the Big Apple?
We actually used to go into the city unbeknownst to our parents and go to like clubs, like raves and like dance clubs and stuff. It was pretty funny because like my parents had no clue that their kids were like driving over the bridge and going to the Limelight, which was like one of the biggest like rave clubs in all of New York City. And they closed the one in New York because the owner was like stabbed in the bathroom. And we went there all the time. And like one day we went and it was like boarded up and they're like, what happened? He's like, it's closed. Because we would just go to these clubs and you'd forget, like there's no clocks. So you're just dancing. And then all of a sudden you'd be like, we probably should like go, you know, because they were like open till like 6 a.m.
How old were you?
17.
Okay.
So we'd go outside and it was like bright out. And I'm like, oh shit, like we got to get home. Like our parents are waking up soon.
Were you supposed to be 21 to get in?
No, I think it was 18.
Okay.
But they never really carded. I always bought these crazy shirts from PacSun. Like I would go into like PacSun, buy whatever crazy shirt I could find that was like, this is going to get me into the Limelight. And there was this, I don't know the appropriate name of the person. I think they were not trans, but they were, I think someone like then asked them and they were like, no, I'm not trans. But she's like, I'm a cross-dresser. But it was this like 7'2" guy who then I think was wearing like some sort of stilts. And he like with
drag queen,
fully painted face, and he would like pick you. You'd have to get picked. So he'd be like, you get in there, you get out of line, you. And for some reason, every week he'd be like, you get in there, and I would go in without my friends, and then they'd have to like tip the guy like $20 to let them in, and you have to pay $20 to get in anyway. It was in an old church. So I'd go to PacSun and just buy whatever like shiny, crazy shirt I could buy because I'm like, we're going to the Limelight tonight. We'd go and he'd be like, you get in there. And then you walk through this like freaking drawbridge. It's an old church. And then there's a woman in a booth. Doesn't even look at you, and you just throw the 20 and she just stamps your hand. I remember we drove home and it was like I got home at like 5:30 in the morning. And I was like, how am I going to get in? They double locked. They just assumed I was home. I saw the bathroom light come on and I'm like yelling at my sister. And she opens her head out the window and she had one of those like 80s like braces thing, like those mouth piece thing, like mouth a huge guards. One. And she's like, is that Anthony? And I'm like, open the front door. She's like, it's 5:30 in the morning. What are you doing? I'm like, shut up. Just open the front door. She's like, it's 5:30. So she opens the front door and I just blow past her up the stairs. And my mom's like, was that Anthony? And my sister's like, no, I was just getting the paper.
Oh, God.
And I'd have to go, and I would just like sleep till 2. They probably thought I was like
on drugs.
Yeah, well, I was, but you know, they didn't know that until
later,
the end of my junior year.
You're from a bigger family?
8 kids.
8 kids?
6 sisters. So I've got one brother. And
you're the youngest?
No, second to youngest. And
him
and I are the only two. Well, my other sister, but she's in Ohio, but me and him are like the only two that are like way off the map compared to.
What does that mean?
Everybody else is in New Jersey or New York.
Oh, okay. Where's your brother at?
He's in West Virginia. That's where his wife is from.
Okay. So all these kids,
they're everywhere.
What's the age gap?
Oh.
Well, let's just talk about you and your brother. How far are you guys apart?
He's in his mid-60s.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
There's a huge age gap.
Yeah.
And what about you and the people closest to you in age? What's the age gap?
My younger sister's only 2 years younger than me.
Okay. And your next sister?
She's 2 years older.
Okay.
So it's like 2, 2, 2, but then it skips like 10,
Jesus
12.
Christ.
When I grew up, we all grew up in the same house, but by the time I was like 12, half the house was already moved out.
Yeah.
You know?
I can't imagine having that many siblings. And my parents both come from eight brothers and sisters each, but it's just me and my brother. How did you cope in high school? Were you like getting in trouble a lot for attention? Or
no. I did whatever I wanted. Like, because by the time they got to me, they didn't care.
Yeah.
So I was literally doing like crazy shit and never getting caught. I mean, I did eventually get caught, but
what do you mean by crazy shit?
Oh, like I was like such a dumbass. Like I was like a smart dumbass. Like
with the law or like
like one time my neighbor. She was so sweet too, and I feel terrible that I did this. She's like, I'm dog sitting. You know, I need a dog sitter. We're going away. You can come over, bring your friends. You know,
God.
And I was like, okay. So then, like, I basically had a party at their house, and then we found like weed, and
weed.
We were like smoking weed, but we didn't even know what we were doing because we were like 16 or 17 at the time, and I just felt terrible because like people were like, oh, they got like, there's like a porno downstairs. I'm gonna steal it. And people were just like, I just was like, not like, hey guys, like,
were they
no.
your friends or just people found out?
They literally just moved in, and then she's like, I need a dog sitter.
No, I mean the people that showed up.
Oh, the people that showed up were like friends from high school.
Okay.
I remember like we were like in their hot tub, and someone's like, I'm stealing their lobster, and I finally like put my foot down to the lobster. I'm like,
not
guys,
the lobster.
She's gonna know. and then I
got
got like
the pot and the porn. But the lobster's got to stay.
That's where I draw the line. I was so like stressed.
Was it with like a stuffed lobster?
No, it was literally like lobster. They were loaded, dude. Like there was like a freezer of lobster tails.
Oh,
and she told us we could eat whatever we wanted, and for some reason I was just like, no. Like it got too real, and then I started to feel like a bad person.
Sure, you were a bad person.
And then I was, because then they came back, and then they didn't say anything. They were like not asking me to dog sit anymore.
Oh shit.
Yeah, I was kind of on a downward spiral because like I just was like smoking a lot of weed, and then I met this like kid who was like, he was like bad news, and he was like
high school.
Yeah, he was like putting shit in our drinks and stuff, and like I was like, oh man, what are we doing? Like what are we on? And like he was like we gotta drink Robitussin. Do you ever have that friend in high school? Like, you gotta drink the bottle of Robitussin.
I was that friend. Yeah.
I did it, and it was the dumbest high.
We would do things just to see what.
Yeah.
What would get.
But that kid was just like bad news.
In high school, what were you like in terms of like were you hanging out with like theater kids? Were you a jock? What was your like
No, neither
nerdy
one of those.
kid?
We were just we had a good group of people, actually, really good guys, and like just good people, funny. Everybody was super funny. We were always like writing stories and writing jokes and joking around. Like there was just a good bunch.
Except for the Robitussin kid.
Yeah, that kid, he didn't come until like senior year.
Were you guys drinking on weekends?
Yeah, it was mostly drinking, but I never really was like a huge drinker. I always preferred weed. But then like when you start getting caught by your parents and stuff, you're like, there was like a shame period where I was like, I can't smoke weed. I have to like honor my parents.
Sure.
And then that's why I have this like.
No, I have the same way. I get it.
Yeah, I have this like reel that I made. It's like of Joaquin Phoenix and the Joker when he's laughing, and you know, like when he's doing that, like the uncontrolled. And it says like me when my like friggin' weed addicted friend is telling me that they're quitting, because it's like you don't really ever quit. You just take breaks. And so I took like a long break. In fact, till I moved here, and then my neighbor knocked on the door, and she's like, "Welcome to Chicago," and she handed me an envelope, and she gave me all this weed, and I was like, "What do I do with this?" Like I haven't smoked in so long, and I didn't, and I would still get panic attacks and stuff. But somehow, you just find your way back, and you learn how to just chill. And
I can't do weed anymore. I get paranoid. Like
that's why I always have a Lorazepam in my pocket in case I freak out. But I've just
what?
It's like a anti-anxiety pill.
Oh, okay.
Just I have in my pocket in case I freak out. I should probably make like a video like that you watch when you're having a panic attack with weed. I remember one time I was like, look, you got two choices. This is some really good weed. This is like the voice in my head. I'm like, you can panic right now, or you can enjoy it. And if you panic, just know statistically no one's ever actually died from taking 2 hits.
Yeah.
And I don't even think anybody's died from taking 10 hits. Just enjoy your life. And I've just learned how to like ground myself, and then I just calm down.
You're high.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing though. When people say that sativa and what's the other one?
Indica is really like will chill you.
That's how it affects normal people. I feel like drugs affect me differently. So like sativa makes me more anxious, and the other one, indica, makes me like just average anxious. But I have ADD, so it's like.
What about a hybrid?
I don't know.
We're gonna figure out this.
I'm happy just not saying. I pass on grass. But no, last 3 times I'm like, even if it's the littlest amount, people are like, "This is gonna help you sleep," and I'm like, "Okay." And then I'll take indica, and I'll be up for like, just freaking the fuck out.
That's why I just do little nibbles of like gummies. I just nibble on them.
So what do you do after high school? Go to college?
I went to college.
Where'd you go?
Stockton. Well, it's now called Stockton University. It's a really well-known good school in New Jersey, but nobody in the Midwest has ever heard of it. I wasted a lot of time with courses because I was like, I knew I wanted to write, and I wanted to do. I was like, I can't do that as like a major though. And then someone's like, yeah, you can. After I took like tons and tons of classes trying to figure out what, like I took like economics, like anthropology, sociology, and then eventually someone's like, just do the major, dude. Like you're gonna like it, you're gonna get good at it, and it turns out to be a blessing in disguise because the writing program head was a Pulitzer Prize winner. I mean, he was so tough. It helped me so much, like because he was like. Like, and he would just like tear your stuff apart.
That's how you get better.
Oh God,
I love that shit.
But it was so good because like when he liked your stuff, like you felt so good.
I feel like that's the kind of teacher I like.
Yeah, it's kind of abusive, but it does make you better.
But think about it, and we talk about this on the podcast sometimes, where we coddle people sometimes, and they don't get better.
With writing,
yeah,
that might be our generation. Like,
yeah,
where
it's a Gen X thing.
We like to get abused to know to feel like praised. Whereas like now someone will be crying and they'd be writing a TikTok about it. Like
if you look at the comedy clubs now afterwards, guys and girls who are Gen X were so mean to each other and we like it. But then sometimes you'll do that to younger people. If you like
freak out.
Yeah. Like I only do it to people I like.
What do you mean? Like roast them after they
that roast, but just being mean.
Brian Hicks does this thing where
he's so mean.
I guess he said that Bert used to do this to him where you would go up and have like a great set and he'll come up to you anyway and be like, so where do you think you lost him? And you're like, wait a minute, I just killed. Like, what are you talking about? And I remember he did it to me like last year, and I go, were you not in the room? And he goes, Anthony, I'm playing. Yeah. I'm quoting Bert. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, what? Because I'm like, I don't know what you just watched. And it got me in my head like instantaneously.
Yeah, he does all kinds of stuff like that.
So now I do that to like some younger comics. I'm like, so what happened up there? After they have a really good set, and their face just comics are so sensitive, but they're also super gullible. You can tell them anything,
especially after a show.
Just in general, you can tell them anything. They'll believe it.
It's a vulnerability too, because you're just on stage, fucking basically. Not you, but a lot of comedians are talking about personal stuff.
Yeah.
You're up there doing dick jokes and shit. Yeah, the fun thing I like to do now, someone did it to me, was like, if someone crushes, you come up and then you're like, did you go up yet?
Take it back.
That's a fun one too.
Taking it back.
But then on the flip side too, and we talked about it before, the good job thing you said. I hate when comics say good set to someone when it's not a good set.
I don't do that.
Good.
I stopped. I think I may have done it in the past out of just like, it's like kind of like being like, my condolences.
I refuse to do it.
I posted a joke about this on Facebook at one point. I said, stop saying good job if a comic just bombed. Look at them the way you look at somebody when you're acknowledging them at a funeral. Just be like, hey.
No, you just don't make eye contact. That's what everyone else does. Is just you get on your phone, you look at your you make eye contact.
Well, then that's super obvious.
I yelled at comics to do that.
But I could be like, this is part of it, man.
That's too harsh.
I've said it to myself, like, oh, this is part of it.
I think some people don't know that they bombed too. And sometimes if you tell them good set, they're going to remember that you told them that.
Yeah. There is a certain level of like false sense of like an inability to be subjective.
No self-awareness.
Yeah, like they'll bomb painfully, and then in the same night be like posting, "How come I'm not getting bookings? I'm not getting it. I'm not getting it because of A, B, C, D, or E." And I'm like, "Do you really need me to tell you why?"
In a meritocracy, which comedy should be and used to be, I think that makes sense. If you crush, you get rewarded. But I've been, and you have too, I know, because we've talked about this. There'll be people that just murder every show, and they're not getting booked enough. And on the flip side, people, you see them bombing consistently.
Oh, yeah.
And it takes so long for it to catch up that they should not be booked and the other guy or girl should be.
Yeah, I kind of equate that to like the presidency. It's like
hasn't started yet.
The people that should have been booked.
So in college, you're doing writing. You have this teacher that's brutal.
Yeah, he was brutal, but I got better. Really, not so much in only just writing, but like having an eye for what's not cliche, but like what is actual like quality original ideas. Like I feel like if anything that was invaluable about that program was that ability to be able to discern that. People often always used to say that people in the program that we took ended up going to law school because of your analytical skills and looking at stuff and being able to pick and pinpoint facts and details. I never, not until like you and I talked like maybe 10 years ago, I thought about it for like a second, but
you can never make it as a law school person.
You don't know.
And you want to know why?
You don't know. I'm too nice.
No, it's not. No, because being concise is important. And you know what, T Murph one time made fun of your post.
Oh, but I'm like, I'm posting. Oh, because comics post that they're too long. But I'm like, you also probably with that comment never read a book. It's like, tell me you've never read a book and it shows.
But with
I've gotten way better with concise facts. I listened to the people.
But you're one thing that when I first started my first job in law school, it's like I would write these long, like whatever, these long arguments for a motion. My boss would just come in and be like, "Let's talk about this."
All right, Farahvar, we don't need
6
Moby
pages. He'd be like, "This could all have been just one page." I'm like, I don't see how you could do that. And then he'd show me how to like take all the fat out.
Yeah, you got to trim the fat.
That's why. But you're a creative writer, so you're the opposite.
That's where like writing jokes on like, well, I'm not really on X or Twitter, but like Threads is nice because like you learn how to like write a nice concise joke. And one of the jokes that actually went viral was a couple weeks ago. I wrote, comedians who run open mics act like they booked the Tonight Show. It's like sometimes you walk in, you're like, am I doing Fallon right now, or am I doing 5 minutes for 6 kids that are trashed on old styles?
That's how Merkel's was, baby.
Yeah, but people paid attention. For the most part, it was a pretty good mic as far as like people paying attention.
I'm impressed you still go to open mics. I
try to go to 2 or 3 a week.
Wow. Yeah. I just use the shows like the show tonight.
I just feel like I can't. I've done that. I tried it.
But you have your show on Tuesdays at Comedy Bar. I think you're more of a perfectionist in the sense you need to, and you're a baseball fan, you should know like not all of them have to hit.
Yeah.
Like, if you have a shit sandwich where you got a crusher and you got a crusher, if you put something in the middle, it might be better than going to 2 or 3 open mics a week. You don't really get a fucking good feel.
Well,
sometimes.
That's why I disagree only because I've only picked the
certain
3
locations.
rooms.
Sure. What is your writing process though? Are you actually writing pen to paper every day, or how do you write?
It's mostly just stuff that I think about. Take an edible or something and watch a movie, and then I'll stop the movie. And I'm like, oh my God, that's a really funny idea, and
it'll inspire you.
Or I'll be like, uh-oh.
The movie is
this one going to get me in trouble? And then I go through this, like, which I think, like, I've learned to be better about, like, is it going to get me in trouble? And then I'm like, probably. And that's the joke I need to do.
Yeah.
Because if you're not doing that, like, what are you doing?
What's the point?
There's a difference between, like, being, like, the bros, groups that are just, like...
edgelords.
Yeah, just, like, saying the controversial thing, but no real... like punchline, like the Tony Hitchcliff thing. There was like no punchline. It was just like racist tropes. Like, oh, I eat watermelon with my black friend. And it's like, okay, like what's the joke?
Well, it was
blah blah blah,
so
blah
other,
Latinos. Okay, what's the joke? Like, there's an opportunity to make a joke, but you just didn't have a joke, so it fell flat. You're saying I'm like the joke connoisseur.
No, but you said that you'd watch a movie.
Oh no, the movie doesn't necessarily. I'll usually like put like a movie on. The edible then like kicks in, and then I'm like, uh-oh, and then I get like ideas just start flowing.
So the movie's just in the background.
Sometimes I do get hooked in the movie.
Okay,
like,
you get the idea, then you go write it on your phone. What do you do?
Usually you like write it down like in a note, or I'll like save it as a draft on like Facebook or Threads, and then sometimes I'll think it might be funnier as like a reel, so I'll make like a reel for TikTok or Instagram, and then maybe I'll think that reel might actually be funny on stage, and I'll try it on an open mic, and if it goes well with the open mic, I'll try it on stage, or I'll just know it's a banger right off the bat, and I'm just like gonna pull it out one day.
You are more like not like a one-liner comic, but you are like the traditional comic where you're not telling stories on stage.
I've been telling a few here and there, but I feel like people tend to zone out, especially when you're hosting like that Tuesday show.
Sure.
You get all tourists, they don't want to hear a 12-hour story about your family. Like you got to like being like bing, bing, bing. Okay, next joke. All right.
Stories are generally a story comic. I'm a story comic. No, my stories are usually like 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, but if it's engaging,
sure.
They
got to beat every 30 seconds.
Sometimes like they'll go up on like a late night set and their whole set is a story, and it's like, well, if that story doesn't go well, the set doesn't go well.
That's your process. You're writing it down when you get inspired. Do you
during the day it happens too.
You record all your sets?
I don't record all of them. I'll usually get the footage from the club.
I'm talking about audio. You don't record it for yourself?
I used to.
Wow, I thought for sure you did that.
I used to. And then I just never was listening to them, so I'm like, I just stopped.
So let's talk about now, after your shows. You don't go out. You're not partying, obviously.
Sometimes I'll go out.
What do you do?
Like if there's a party or...
You get invited to those things?
Yeah, sometimes actually I do. People don't know I'm old, or they say that they don't appear or act old, so...
Oh, I act and appear old.
Documentary Paul over here.
I'm like the narc.
But sometimes I'm like, I go there and I'm like, I probably should have just gone home. Like sometimes when you're done like talking to people for the night, you're just like, my social tank is empty.
What about on the road? Do you go on the road and what do you do after your shows there? Do you go right back to your hotel or do you go?
Well, when I was in like LA for that month, I always hung out. Like I was
That's different.
you're out of town, you're hanging out. Like we went out to eat, we went out to like a party. That was actually a lot of fun because you were like meeting people each night and it was like a vacation, you know. I kind of miss Zanies in St. Charles because I always met people and partied with them after the shows, and I would always stay there because I would just get the rooms were like super cheap, and I would just make it like my own getaway. I loved it.
Do you go on the road on the weekends now?
Sometimes, like I'll be at Dr. Grin's in a couple weeks in Michigan.
What do you do when you go there?
Well, have you been to there? The mob is kind of nuts. And that's like
I was just there 2 months ago.
I don't know if that's like my vibe. It's like
ironically,
the
other
like,
bars, it's
ironically
music.
It's like the limelight, and I'm like, get me out of here. Those last shows, I don't feel like I met anybody that was like my age.
The last time like 5 or 6 years ago when I did Grins, I would go out with the people, like as long as
staff or like
no. I would go out with the people that were at the shows to see me. I'd go to like the bars, not at the Bob necessarily, but down the street.
Okay.
Nothing good ever happened. Like they'd be like, "We're gonna go back to our house," and it was like a third location, which you should never do. And then you're stuck playing like horse at 3 a.m. with people.
Sounds like a horror plot.
Yeah, but it was strip horse to be fair, and that might have been my idea. But yeah, it is a horror plot because you're like, how the fuck am I getting home now? And where are my shorts? What do you do then? You just go back to the hotel room and get food?
I'd be game if people were up for stuff.
But you're not looking for it. You're just...
I always prefer to go out. Like,
really?
Yeah, especially if it's the last show or the last show of like the weekend. I like to just go out and like I don't drink, but I will have like a beer. It's just sometimes it's just nice.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you meet really good people, really fun people, and sometimes you see them again. Sometimes they come to your shows again.
Yeah.
And then sometimes you never see them again. And it's hilarious that you spend. I remember we did Zanies in St. Charles one night, and there was this lady. It was a late show. She was bombed out of her mind. Like she was yelling at the host the whole night. I think it was featuring. She was like yelling at me, and she would not stop, and she was making all this noise, and all of a sudden I see her. Like I looked down. I'm like, what did you do? She like turned too quickly to like pick up her phone, and her purse dropped all of her beers off her table and swung behind her and knocked the nachos off the table behind her. And I'm like, ma'am, you are a hot mess. I'm like, it is 8:30, and she starts crying and storms out. She's in the like hallway crying. You could hear her crying. And the server goes and she's like, why are you crying? She goes, I want that man fired. He was so mean to me. He was so mean. Get him fired. She's like, ma'am, like he wasn't mean to you. You knocked over. You were interrupting the show. And she's like, ah. She's like, screaming. Everybody can hear her. And I'm like, oh my God. This is like the ultimate act of like revenge. So after the show, I meet these 3 women who were like on like some girls trip or something. And they're like, we're going to go downstairs to the mariachi bar.
The bar that was next door, yeah.
So we go down and they're like buying me beers. They're buying shots. And of course, I'm just like taking them and drinking them. And I'm now like a little tipsy, and I don't get drunk often because I get a little, like I can be kind of mouthy. Like I think my confidence comes out like that. Like I'm short, but I'm not like a small little punk that you can just I don't like start fights, but like if you say something dumb to me, I will like immediately snap back at you and not hesitate. Whereas in my sober state, I might just be like, and then just leave before I want to like hurt you. So we're in this bar hanging out with them. And all of a sudden, like, they're like, we're going to start our karaoke night, everybody. So the sign-up sheet is out. And we look over, and who do we see signing up with this lady who was just crying? And I look at the girls, and I'm like, you know what I got to do? She's like, what? I'm like, I got to heckle her while she's doing karaoke. No. So she goes up, and she's singing, like, Whitney Houston or something. And before she can get to the... And I go up, you got no voice. I can't believe you're out here singing. Oh, God, you're... She's like, and like she's like, people are like booing. She's like looking at me like I'm ruining her night. And we're all just dying because she's like... And I'm like, all right, I'm done. Like, I got it out.
You got your... Yeah.
But before I can like finish, I just feel this like hand slap me hard on my back. And I turn around and he goes, you going to shut your goddamn mouth so my beautiful wife can sing? And I was so shocked because I was like, I'm about to fight this dude. And I was like, should I just punch him? Like, I don't know what to do. Like, I haven't been in this situation in a while. So I was like, just be honest. You're drunk. Just be honest. And I was like, I was like, you know who else has a fucking beautiful voice? I'm like, me too. And your wife wouldn't shut up when I was talking. And he just goes like this. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And he turns around, and I'm fully bracing to get punched or duck. And he just leaves. And then 10 minutes later, I feel him hitting me again. And I'm like, what are you doing, dude? Like, I'm like ready to go. I'm like, what are you doing? And he goes, I got you this. And it's a pita plate with like hummus and vegetables and like wings. He's like, I'm really sorry about my wife. And like, he just like gave me a peace treaty, but she gave me the look of death, but I have never felt so accomplished. Good. Yeah.
There's always the circle of life there.
I don't necessarily like getting revenge,
but you got it.
But I also feel like comics are in this weird position right now where we're being like bullied a little bit online, like I have female comics that are friends of mine, and they're like sending me like screenshots, like, look what this guy wrote on my, it's like, like, you're too fat to do stand up, you're not funny, women aren't, like, the shit that they deal with a
like
lot beyond, right? And then you get some stuff too that it's like, oh, this guy's not funny, or blah 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 blah. And I remember I posted some joke from like my special. And it's like this old, like 66-year-old black dude wrote something really like mean. He was like, "Oh, this is garbage." I thought about like responding, but then you have the anxiety of like, "Oh, I'm gonna respond, and then I'm gonna wait, and then I gotta check my phone, and then he's gonna respond." So now what I do, comics, young comics, if you're listening, veterans, if you feel free to do this, is don't do that. Go on their page and go to an old post and comment about something about them that is going to make them insecure. So I went on his posts. I scrolled back like 3.5 years ago.
Dear God.
And I found, and it took me like 2 minutes because he doesn't have that many posts. He's not a comic. And it was him singing You Can't Always Get What You Want by the Rolling Stones. And I was just like, this is garbage. Write your own music, you hack. And he never commented again. So...
What a dick.
It's like you gotta, we gotta take it back. We gotta make crowds scared again. Why are we scared of what to say?
You're right.
They should be scared that we're gonna go at them.
These are all good points, Anthony. Anthony, we are out of time, mostly because one of the cameras died. But where can people find out more about you and your upcoming shows?
My website, www.anthonybonazzo.com. Comedian trainer on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads.
Thank you, Anthony, for doing the podcast.
Thank
you all for watching another episode of Why Are You Awake? Go to sleep.